Hey, this is James, the XD Man, and today we're going to take a look at how to remove and reinstall the Central Operating Group, the COG chassis system from the Springfield Armory Echelon pistol. And I'm going to show you some of the tips and tricks and how to get that little chassis in and out without being a pain in your rear end. To remove the COG Central Operations Group from the pistol, we're going to have to field strip the pistol. To do so, remove the magazine, lock the slide back, locate the disassembly lever and rotate it to the 6 o'clock position. Once you have it in the 6 o'clock position, slowly release the tension off the slide and pull it right off. Now we have our field stripped frame and we can move on to the disassembly lever and COG removing it. So now that we have our field stripped frame, we're going to remove the disassembly lever. We're going to hook our finger behind the exposed disassembly lever and we're going to rotate it counterclockwise at the same time pulling outwards on the frame. Once it pops off, we're now going to start to pull that disassembly lever out of the frame while also turning clockwise this time. And then you notice it pops right out. Now that our disassembly lever has been removed from the frame, next let's remove the COG system. But first I want to bring your attention to an oval-shaped cutout window that's on the front of the chassis. Notice that there is a lug sticking up through that window. Notice that the lug is all the way forward on that oval window. This indicates to us that the COG system is locked all the way back in the frame. Our goal is to move that chassis forward so that lug is now hitting the back side of that oval window like so. To remove the central operating group, we're going to first raise the slide stop levers, and I'm going to put my finger in the front of the chassis and slowly push forward. Going back to our window, you'll notice that the lug is now in the middle of the oval. Remember, we have to move that lug all the way to the back. If we try to pull that COG system out now, we're going to end up breaking something and it's not going to want to come out easy. The next step to make this really easy is, again, we're going to put our finger and give it slight forward pressure and at the same time pull the trigger. Notice it went forward even more and now the back end raises up and will come out of the frame like so. If you notice, we're holding the COG system, and even if I shake it, nothing's going to fall out. I want to make note of this pin that's right here does move back and forth, so be careful. You don't want to push that, but in normal, just everyday playing with it, it's not going to fall out unless you take it out. To reinstall the central operating group back into the grip module, what we're going to do is we're going to first notice the front bottom lugs of the chassis right there on the front. Now we're going to look at the frame, and the frame has two corresponding lugs on the front. So we're going to take our central operating group and we're going to match those front lugs with the frame, and then we're going to slowly start to push it in. Now, if we try to force it in, notice there's that spring tension that it doesn't want to go in. The trick, again, just like when we disassembled it, we're going to put slight forward pressure on it, and then we're going to pull the trigger, and then you notice that the back end just falls right into place. Now, let's take a look at if the COG system wasn't all the way inserted fully into the frame. Just in case this happens, if you don't fully 100% install that chassis exactly where it needs to go. You'll know this happens if you look at our window in the front of the chassis. Notice that that lug is in the middle position, not fully forward and not fully backwards. If you look in the disassembly lever hole, you notice that there's two circles in there now that it would be impossible to insert your disassembly lever in that hole because it's going to run into the chassis. If we look at the slide release, they're not fully back in their position as well. If you look at the back of the trigger, the metal part of the trigger shelf safety, the trigger safety shelf, is exposed in the frame. If you have this in there, you want to make sure you push full pressure down at the back of the COG system, back where the sear is and everything, and then you're going to push fully backwards. And now that it's in place, remember, see, it didn't take too much pressure. If we look at our witness oval that's in the front of the chassis, you'll notice that the lug is all the way forward now, indicating that we have successfully reinstalled this Central Operating Group into the grip module. The next step in reassembling our Echelon pistol is reinserting the disassembly lever into place. Now, the magazine blocking lever is in the way. If you look in the disassembly lever hole, you'll see a little hook sticking out in there. Well, it's supposed to be sticking out, and what we need to do is take our disassembly lever, and you'll notice that there is a little cutout on one side of it. This cutout, what you're going to do is insert it into the hole with that cutout facing backwards right towards that disassembly lever, like so. You'll notice that the lever sticks almost exactly 6 o'clock. Now what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to take my thumb as I grip it, just like this, and I'm going to put forward pressure on it. Once I get it into that frame, you'll notice that it pushes the magazine blocking lever slightly backwards, and then what we're going to do is we're going to start to rotate clockwise at the same time when we're pushing it into the frame. Once we did that, it slid in there pretty easily. The next thing that I want you to pay attention to is it's very easy, it's loose in there now. We want the two circles facing up at us at about a 45-degree angle. So when we're looking into the frame like this, we want those two holes sticking back out at us just like this, looking at me. I'm looking at it, it's looking at me. We're going to make sure the other side of the disassembly lever connects to the other side of the frame. And we're just going to push it in just until our circle starts to hit the inside of the frame right there. That's our indication point. Now we're going to go and turn that disassembly lever clockwise, because if we tried to push it in, the disassembly lever, see how it'll hit the frame right there? So as we start to slowly turn it back down to the 3 o'clock position, straight back, now I could take one finger pressure and push it into place. The next step is to make sure our disassembly lever and the magazine blocking lever are locked into place. To do so, you're going to slightly push down that disassembly lever till you hear that click. And now, everything works like it should. Now that we've got our frame back to the field strip state, we're going to go ahead and take our slide, slide it back into place, and lock it back. From there, we are going to put our disassembly lever where it's supposed to be. You could lock the slide if you want to, or leave it open. Take your magazine, and she's ready to go back to work. To functions test this pistol, we're going to eject the magazine, make sure we're empty because we are in a safe area. First thing I'm going to do is rack the slide enough to reset the sear. We're going to dry fire the pistol and make sure it works. I let go of the trigger, and now I'm going to reset the sear again. This time I'm going to pull the trigger and hold it back. The gun would have fired. Holding the trigger back, we're going to simulate that first round firing, cycling the slide to put a new round in the chamber. Let's see if the pistol resets. There's reset and refire. There's our functions test, and she's good to go. I hope you've learned something of how to get that central operating group in and out of that frame really easily. The first couple times that I tried to do it, like I said, I read the manual, I knew the theory behind it, but I just wasn't getting things in place, and it just, things weren't clicking into place. One thing that I will warn you is you do not want to force this in and out. You saw how easy it is. It clicks into place with very little to no pressure. You just have to relieve the pressure on it when you pull the trigger or move the slide releases up, etc. So you don't want to force the thing. If you're forcing it, go back and watch the video, look at the close-up views, and figure out what you're not doing correctly, but you don't want to force that in and out. If you're forcing it, something is wrong, and you don't want to get a bigger hammer and make it go into place because you're going to mess something up. So other than that, have fun, and hopefully this was an educational video. If you like what you saw, go ahead and subscribe. Also visit our other social media accounts. Everything is at The Real XD Man.